Ever catch yourself staring at your bank account and it's like, what am I even looking at?
It's like deciphering another language sometimes.
Right. That's why we're doing this whole deep dive, cracking the code on this whole financial peace of mind thing, with the 50-30-20 budgeting rule.
Yeah, it's everywhere lately, right? It's really taken off. And for a good reason. It just gets straight to the point, helps you manage your money without all the confusing jargon.
Exactly. We've been digging into a ton of articles, real stories, even a podcast from, I think he calls himself a financial guru or something.
At first he does.
But they're all about this 50-30-20 rule. So we're going to break it all down, the what, the why, the how, and hopefully your finances will thank you.
Yeah, because let's be real, when your bank account's freaking out, it's not just numbers on a screen. That stress, it gets into everything.
Oh, 100%. Suddenly every notification has you thinking, oh no, is that an overdraft fee?
Right.
This deep dive, though, think of it as your financial chill pill.
There you go. We're hoping you have that aha moment where budgeting isn't a chore. It's a tool that makes life better.
All right, so 50-30-20, give me the rundown. What's the secret sauce?
Okay, so picture this. Your take-home pay split into 3 buckets, okay? 50% that goes to needs, rent, groceries, bills, all the non-negotiables,
Yeah,
right?
got it.
Then 30% that's for wants. Think like dinners out, your hobbies, that fun stuff, the things that make life
Yeah.
And then last but not least, 20% is for savings and paying down debt.
Okay, I'm already liking this. I like that enjoying life is built right in.
Right.
But the wants category, that's got to be where people get tripped up.
Right. It's tempting, right? A lot of the stuff we read, though, stress is not about depriving yourself. It's about being mindful about how you spend, like really aligning your spending with what matters to you.
So less, I'll just buy it on impulse, more, I crushed my budget this month, treat yourself kind of thing.
Exactly. It's about finding joy in the experiences, the connections, pursuing passions, not just accumulating a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
So going back to the 50% for needs, this is all about, the essentials. Roof over your head, keeping the lights on, food on the table, getting around.
Makes sense, but what about those folks living in, say, New York or LA, where rent alone feels like it eats up 50% of their income?
Yeah, for sure.
Our sources had some thoughts on this, right?
Yeah, and they were really upfront about it. They basically said, look, this rule, it's a framework, not like set in stone, right?
Yeah.
So if your needs are pushing past that 50%, it's time to get creative. Could you downsize, maybe a roommate situation, find a more affordable area?
It's kind of like hitting the reset button on those bigger costs to free up some room in the budget.
Exactly. And those little everyday savings, those add up. One of the articles said it perfectly. It said, skipping your daily latte won't make you rich, but it could be the price of a weekend getaway if you invest it wisely.
Okay, now that's a trade-off I can get behind. Speaking of investing wisely, let's talk about that 20% for savings and debt repayment.
Okay.
I gotta say, sometimes the thought of saving stresses me out more than spending.
Really?
Yeah. Where do you even start?
It can be intimidating, but our sources, they all said the same thing. Start small. Even if it's just a tiny sliver of your income, like the habit itself, that's more important than the amount, especially when you're just starting out.
So it's more about building that confidence, like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah. And over time, you gradually increase it.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the fun part, that 30% for wants. One of our sources, they shared a story about this recent grad, Bo. They used this rule right out of college to manage their finances, and it really resonated.
Okay, before we dive into Bo's story, let's take a quick pause right here. Don't worry, we'll be back in a flash to hear all about how Bo conquered their finances with the 50-30-20 rule. You're listening to The Deep Dive. We go deep so you don't have to. And we're back talking all things 50-30-20. Before the break, we were about to hear about Bo and their budget journey, right?
Yeah, Bo's story is really interesting. It shows how this rule can work for anyone. Like, it's not just some theory. Bo actually used it right after college, and they even kept using it when they got a promotion and a raise, so it's pretty flexible like that.
It's like a good pair of jeans, fits no matter what.
Yeah.
But what was Bo actually spending their wants money on? I had some ideas.
Well, they love to travel, so they were really about spending on experiences rather than, buying a bunch of stuff. So instead of impulse buys, they put aside money every month for like weekend trips with friends, even solo trips.
Nice. It's like we were talking about earlier, skipping those little things for something bigger and better later on.
Right. Bo really got that whole thing about fulfillment coming from experiences, connecting with people, rather than just having a bunch of stuff.
It's about making your money match the life you want. But about this whole wants versus needs thing, One thing we hear a lot is, what if your needs already take up, like, way more than 50%? There's not much left for the fun stuff then. What did the article say about that?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, and our sources all said, you gotta be flexible. If your needs are just naturally higher, you might need to adjust things.
So don't give up, just adapt it.
Exactly. Like maybe for a bit, you shrink the wants to 20% and put an extra 10% towards your needs. The important thing is to cover the essentials first, and as you get in a better place financially, you can balance it out more.
Progress over perfection.
Exactly. We saw that a lot. This 50-30-20 thing, it's a guide, not like the financial law or something. Life throws curveballs, so your budget needs to be able to handle that.
And that's got to be where that feeling of control comes in, right? Like, you've got a system, a way to handle whatever comes up.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that really stuck out in research was how much this control thing, it's not just in your head, it actually impacts your well-being, like for real. Like they found financial stress can actually mess with your sleep, your relationships, even how you do at work.
It's like carrying around this heavy weight.
Yeah.
It just drags you down everywhere.
Right. But when you take control of your money, even little steps like using this 50-30-20 rule, it's like you're finally putting that weight down. It makes things clearer, calmer.
Mental decluttering. Something else I realized from all this reading, it's not just about getting by. This rule, it can help you actually achieve those big goals, the things you really want out of life.
Absolutely. Like buying a house, starting a business, even retiring early. Having that solid foundation with your finances just makes it easier to go after what you want without stressing as much.
Okay, that brings us to another big thing our sources talked about, that whole emergency fund thing. What exactly is it and why is it so important?
So imagine an emergency fund, like your financial safety net, right? It's money you've put aside specifically for those unexpected things that come up. Medical bills, your car breaks down, or, knock on wood, you lose your job.
It's like a financial first aid kit.
There you go. It's all about that peace of mind, knowing you can handle those unexpected things without, like, ruining your entire budget or, even worse, going into debt.
The articles we looked at said having 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved up is a good goal. Gotta be honest, that sounds a bit intimidating at first.
Yeah, it can feel like a lot, especially if you're just starting out. But just like we were saying about saving in general, starting small, it makes a difference.
So even if it's just $20 here, $50 there, it's better than nothing.
Absolutely. Over time, those small amounts, they add up. And the whole compound interest thing, that starts working in your favor.
Whoa, hold on. You can't just drop compound interest and move on. Our listeners need the details.
Right. It's basically like a snowball effect for your money. You earn interest on your interest. It's exponential growth.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. So it's like planting a money tree that just keeps growing, even if you only started with a tiny seed. Now, before we get too off track, let's get back to the 50-30-20 rule and talk about some of the things people might be wondering about. What are some common questions or concerns you found?
Oh, there were a bunch. Let's see.
Okay, so one thing we see a lot is, what about people with irregular income? Freelancers, seasonal work, those kinds of things. How do you even begin to use this 50-30-20 thing when your paychecks are all over the place?
A few of the articles, and this was smart, they said try working with your average income. So you go back a few months, figure out the average, and budget based on that.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're not freaking out every month when your income goes up and down.
Right. And then in the good months, when you make more than your average, that's like bonus money to throw at your savings goals or pay down debt faster.
I like it. It's like turbocharging your progress. But what about, and this might sound weird, but what if you're looking at that 30% for once and thinking, I don't really want anything?
You'd be surprised. Some folks are just wired that way, more minimalist, Or maybe they're laser focused on some financial goal. Our sources had some good tips for that, too.
Okay, let me hear them.
Think of it as flexible spending. You don't want anything. Great. Use it for something else you're into. Maybe invest it more aggressively. Put it towards a down payment on a house. Even look into retiring early.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Taking control. This whole deep dive has been really interesting. It's more than just the numbers. It's that feeling like you're in the driver's seat with your money.
100%. And that change in how you think about it, that's where it gets really powerful. It's like less stress, better relationships, even just feeling more capable in other parts of your life.
It all comes together. So, last question. If our listeners only remember one thing from today's deep dive into the 50-30-20 rule, what should it be?
Just start. Even if you don't have it all figured out perfectly, just Take that first step. Calculate what's coming in, what's going out. See where you stand with the 50-30-20 thing, and go from there.
Because even small changes now can add up to big results later.
Exactly. Remember, progress over perfection, right? And you're not alone in this. There's tons of resources, tools, even whole communities out there to help you along the way.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up for this deep dive into the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. We hope you're feeling ready to take charge of your finances. Thanks for being here, and until next time, keep diving deep.